Hey, it's JC. Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban lifestyle and jungle survival. I've got two parangs in front of me, and today we're going to talk about a cheap Malaysian parang versus an expensive one. First, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, do check out my shop links in the pinned comment or description below. You can even join as a channel member. Thanks a lot. So I've got two parangs in front of me. These are made in Malaysia, and generally you'd buy them in Malaysia. You could not get the cheap ones easily overseas. You could get the expensive one from dealers, but it costs more than you'd buy them here locally. Now there's a huge price difference between the two. This would be around $6 for the cheap parang. This one would be about 11 times more, closer to $70. And if you were to import it in, if you're from overseas, then expect to pay closer to about 100 due to just being exporting out, and also the shipping fees from Malaysia to whichever country the dealer is in. So bear that in mind. So two different parangs, they look very similar, but great price differences. So we're talking about 11 times difference. And let's talk about the steels. The steels, I believe, are very similar. Both would be spring steel. This definitely is 5160, but there's a new steel. This is likely also going to be a Japanese steel because it's recycled steel, probably spring steel taken off from trucks, abandoned vehicles and things like that. So this definitely would be cheap recycled steel. Well, I won't say cheap, but recycled steel. Well, this would be new. This would of course be rougher in construction. You can see from the forging of the blade and to the finishing, to the grind as well. I did put an edge on it because it wasn't very sharp, not even a working edge in my opinion. Now it's sharp. And you have this cheap plastic handle, which is just mass produced molded plastic, and you can see it's not finished well at all. And I didn't do anything to the handle, but if I were to use something like this on a regular basis, if I didn't have an expensive parang, I would sand this down, make sure it's nice and smooth. And if you look at this particular parang, definitely fit and finish is much better. Overall construction, the way the handle is epoxy, this is recycled beech wood. So just much better quality overall. Is it worth 11 times? Well, we'll discuss that in this video. I should mention I deliberately chose two patterns that are about the same. This is known as the Chandong or Village Chandong pattern. It's a bit different from the Duku Chandong pattern because it's got a thinner neck. More for general purpose agricultural use, great for bushcraft needs in the jungle, in my opinion. Great multi-purpose too, because you can chop with it, you can cut, you can do finer work by choking up like that. It's angled in such a way that when you do chopping, you don't have to use so much strength because it really maximizes the weight and the angle and force as the knife is coming down. And this is pretty much the same. The only difference would be the blade length. This is 10 inch, this is 12 inch. I would have gotten a 10 inch, but it was just out of stock, so I had to get the 12 inch, and that was the closest I could get. In terms of weight, they're about the same, between 600 grams, maybe just above, which I think it's fine. I like my parangs to be about 500 to 600 grams. I believe this is slightly lighter than this one, even, yeah, because it is shorter. The handle is probably about the same weight, if not slightly lighter, but basically because this is longer, so it's heavier, so that makes sense, right? So about 600 grams, and I think that's really good in terms of being able to do nimble work and to work long term. The thing about heavy machetes, of course, that may be great for chopping, but if you want to go jungle bashing, if you want to do other kinds of work, it's going to be really heavy. You're going to fatigue very fast, and it's just going to be uncomfortable. You probably get blisters as well. So if you want to chop, use a saw, use an axe instead of a big parang, in my opinion. So to me, 10-12 inches is great, and this pattern to me also works perfectly. But let's talk about, I guess, the main differences and what I think, if it's worth it, you know, to pay 11 times more. Well, look at the blade thickness. They're about the same, so that's about 6 millimeters. This one is more perfect, I'd say. This is more rough. Again, the grind, cannot expect anything. It is kind of a semi-saber convex grind. It's not even consistent, as you can see. This one is a convex grind. Now there's a bit of a secondary edge because of resharpening and stropping. So you would need to put your own edge on this. If not, it probably won't cut that well. In terms of long-term usage, if you're going to use it for long-term, as I said, sand this out and maybe even use a glove with it. This definitely much more ergonomic, and I would say, of course, the balance is better. Now, I've done some work with this. Obviously, the most natural thing to do would be some chopping. Both work adequately fine. Clearing also not a problem, which includes de-limbing or just cutting down smaller branches or trees that might be in the way. And then when it came to finer work, I would say it really depends on the blade profile and the grind. So of course, if you get the cheap parang out of the box from the shop, then there's no way it's going to do finer work. For the MYParang, the more expensive parang, then you could do finer work as well. But with the parangs, because they are bigger in size and different shape from conventional knives, you do need to learn how to use it effectively when doing more fine work. I would say, of course, overall, I get much more pleasure with the expensive parang than the cheaper parang. But can the cheaper parang do everything the expensive parang can do? Yes, it can, but probably just not as effectively and not as comfortably. So that's something to think about. Another thing that I should bring your attention would be how you would carry the parangs in terms of the sheaths. When you buy this sort of cheap parangs from the hardware store, it doesn't come with any sheath. You have to buy them extra, and if you buy them, there'll probably be some cheap nylon sheath that really won't last. Now, when you get a parang from MYParang, that's this specific brand, you do get a sheath. That sheath is a nylon sheath like that, goes in. And there's I think either wood or cardboard or plastic that holds the shape, and then this just loops over here with Velcro, and then you have a belt loop. There's also a molly system, so you can strap this to the patch, but it's a very simple sheath. It's kind of patterned after the classic wood or rattan sheaths that the Orang Asli or Aboriginals would carry a parang in, and this one actually has a good fit. I had previous parangs which kind of just shake inside like that. Now it's not a tight fit, but there is a fit at least. So that's the sheath you get with it. I don't use this sheath. I'll show you my sheath later. So what I'm actually doing now is putting this parang in this sheath. Now, even though it's 12 inches, because for the 10 and 12 inch parangs, MYParang, I believe, uses the same sheath. So that works out very well. And I carry this cheap parang in this nicer sheath. Now, the sheath that I have for my expensive parang would be an equally expensive sheath. This is a Kydex sheath made by Malaysian Knives out in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'll put a link in the description below, but bear in mind, he can't really make the sheaths for overseas markets because you would have to send him your knife for him to fit, but he can't ship out knives out of Malaysia. Malaysia just doesn't allow the export of knives to individuals. This sheath, of course, is beautiful. I've showcased it before, so don't really want to spend too much time on it, but it's Kydex. There's a nice aesthetic pattern, and of course fits the parang very well, and I've got my own system that I use to carry on my belt. So that's something to take note of when you buy a parang. For a cheap parang, there's no sheath. For an expensive parang, you do get a serviceable sheath. So what do I think overall? Do I think that this expensive parang is worth 11 times more than the cheap parang? Well, I think value is very subjective, but I'll say this. If you couldn't afford a more expensive parang, let's say in this case $100 for a parang like this, which is nicely fit and finished, good quality control, good ergonomics and well balanced, and you had only $6 to spend on this, then I'll say just get this and don't let it stop you from doing any kind of bushcrafting or getting out in the jungle. I hope no one stops going out to enjoy themselves because they couldn't afford to get the right tool or the best tool that they want. Now this is definitely serviceable. So if I did not have this, I would definitely, go with this. I would sand the handle, I would make it neater, I'll do my best to reprofile this and make sure it's nice and sharp, but also looks better. And overall, I would have no problem working with this. I don't see this really having any big problem. I don't see this coming out from the handle, for example. I think the handle will break before it's going to actually come out and get loose. But I should mention this. When it comes to cheap parangs, there are many versions of cheap parangs and some are really horrible. So if you're at a hardware store, you can actually go ahead and look and choose. If you've got a bit more experience, you can kind of choose it online, or you just gamble, right? It's $6. If it comes out it's trash, then well, don't use it. Well, I hope that has helped you shed some light on cheap and expensive parangs that are made in Malaysia. Both are great in my opinion. Get both if you can. And if you have any thoughts on this, if you have tried Malaysian parangs before and tried them out in the jungle or in the forest, do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe. And if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.